Welcome to In the Black, the podcast that shines a light on resilience, transformation, and the power of reinvention. I'm Aracelli, and each week, my co host Shannon and I sit down with incredible women who have faced some of life's hardest challenges, from personal setbacks to societal obstacles, and have emerged on the other side stronger, driven, and ready to make a difference.
On In the Black, we celebrate these stories of strength and success, diving deep into the journeys of women who turned pain into purpose, adversity into action, and now dedicate themselves to making the world a better place in their own way. They're here to inspire, share hard-earned wisdom, and remind us all, no matter how dark things may seem, life is cyclical and dawn is coming. So whether you're looking for inspiration, motivation, or just a reminder that change is always possible, this is the podcast for you. Welcome to In the Black.
Welcome to the In the Black podcast. We are celebrating our 20th episode today, and we've got something extra special. In this milestone episode, we're diving into 20 questions pulled directly from the amazing questions you've asked us on social media. From fun curiosities to thought-provoking insights, we are answering it all. So grab your headphones, sit back, and let's get to it.
That's scary.
It's scary.
We are answering it all.
Yep.
This is not part of the questions, but my question to you, Shannon, is how do you feel about being a podcaster? Have you made it official in your mind, in the world?
Yeah. I mean, we have a podcast and we're doing it, so that makes us podcasters.
Yeah,
Um, huh?
I have not gotten there yet. I had seen something that you had posted, and I don't remember where it was, but it was like it's probably in our experience, actually. No, it was something else. I don't know. But you had posted podcaster along all the other things that you do, and I was like, wait, we're allowed to call ourselves that?
We are.
I have I've noticed that I don't embody things, if that's the right word.
Well, you're a podcaster. Congratulations.
So how are you feeling about that?
I feel pretty excited. I also feel like amazed by you because if our listeners don't know, you do the majority of everything in regards to the podcast. I tend to just show up and talk, and it's lovely for me. But if I were to regard myself as a podcaster, I would say you're probably 100 times more so. So, um, but it's been fun. It's been awesome, an awesome way to get to know you and to meet women who are just so incredible and powerful. And I absolutely love it.
Literally, we don't know each other.
Hmm.
Isn't that wild? We met each other,
It's so weird.
and it seems like we do though. We just work together so well. I feel like, don't you?
Yeah,
And
absolutely. I think that it's been a great experience so far, and I'm really looking forward to doing more things in person with you also, which is so funny that we didn't start doing anything until both of us moved away.
well, that goes back to being able to breathe in our previous
True.
episodes.
Yeah.
And I was reflecting this the other day about our 10th episode, how we were kind of reflecting on our first 10 and how I admitted that I didn't really listen to the first ones, and so the editing was pretty crap. Um, but I was out walking the dogs and I was like, why didn't I just now I'm so in love with it and I listen to it over and over again. So it takes me twice as long to edit now. But I want to make sure, the guest sounds good, we sound good, the questions make sense, things like that. So it's just in that short amount of time, which isn't really a short amount of time if you think about it, because we only release every week, and then it's all about the guest within that week. But to me, it feels like a short amount of time. Um,
Mhm.
right? It's just like I'm always editing, I guess, and scheduling people and doing all the things, but it feels like in such a short amount of time, I've had that much growth within being able to do this thing. But
Yeah, absolutely.
it.
And I think that's the whole purpose, right? So, not only the growth of the people that we are showcasing every week, but also we kind of get to go on a journey together and grow and inspire each other and see what happens from this. And that's half the fun is just seeing where it goes.
Have you noticed that when you listen to the stories, does it impact you?
Oh,
Does it
absolutely.
does it kinda
And
go ahead.
sorry. Some of them way more so than others. I'm just like, oh, wow.
Yeah, it kind of always brings me back to why we're doing this. Because we're human,
Mhm.
we are like, "Oh, God, are you sure that this is what you wanted me to do? Like, this is did I mishear you? Like, am I wrong?" And then I hear the stories and it always pulls me back. I'm like, "Okay, okay." It's a rough road, but it always reminds me and kind of centers me as to, like, why we're doing this, and I don't know, it always gives me chills or makes me wanna cry or, some of those heartfelt stories, and then sometimes when I listen to them, like 3 edits ago, I was editing Anne Marie, which, by the way, I misspelled her name, on, like, the thing that actually mattered, so it actually took me forever to re-edit everything. It couldn't have
Oh,
been
no.
that you read and I could easily type. It was actually
Mhm.
the photos and the videos and, like, doing all the so it took me forever. So I apologize to Anne Marie, but her story when I was editing, it just again, would bring me tears to my eyes. I just loved how heartfelt it was. And, with a lot of the other, guests that we've had on, I think it's not only healing to our listeners, but healing to myself as well, and as
Me
I'm
too.
learning things.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. It has been just beautiful hearing the stories and being able to relate and see, like, so often our journeys are similar but so different, and we grow in different areas. And so, learning how people have grown in areas that I'm probably still weak in, or, different things like that. And I'm just like, oh, this is incredible. So, that's awesome.
It's impacting many, many areas of hopefully many people. So
And
should we dive into the question?
sure. I was just going to say, this is our 20th episode. So technically, we're 1/10 of the way to a great podcast.
What does that
They say that typically you don't have a great podcast until your 200th episode. So we're 1/10 of the way there. And I think we're doing pretty amazing so far.
There are no signs of stopping. Like, it's overwhelming. First of all, to the listeners, thank you for your response and for all the applications that are pouring in. And I will get to you by the end of the year, hopefully, or next year. But I am scheduling. Um, I I don't know how I feel about scheduling like 5 months in advance, 4 months in advance, because I don't know where life is going to take us. So right now, I'm scheduling 5 people out, and then, like, midway through, 5 people out, midway through, 5 people out, and it, like, takes up the whole month of, April and then looking into May. So right now, I have April scheduled out, and then
Mhm.
middle of April, I will send out more for, wait, January, March, April, May. Yes.
Yeah.
More for me. Oh, how to do math, calendar math on my fingers. Okay. Um, so yeah, no, where was I going with that? Yeah,
Oh,
there's
just the
time
response.
that's stopping, yeah.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing, which is another reminder of, like, obviously, we're supposed to be doing this. Um, and I even researched if, like, there's other people doing it, and there are, but it's different.
Mhm.
So I don't know where our journey is gonna take us. I know there's paintings, so we're working on that. I'm actually gonna start helping with painting, which I'm really nervous. I just got the canvases in.
Mhm.
I shrunk this much. I was like, "I can do this." I have this vision of one of the girls that we nominated, and then I got the canvases in, I'm just like, "I can't do it."
You can do it. I believe in you.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna do it, and if it comes out to be nothing, then it's nothing, and it's all on you still, Shannon, because that was what you're to conquer. So yeah, we will my vision is to have it as merch. So I will have some quotes from our guests and a little bit of a silhouette type of them. I think
Mhm.
some shirts and some merch that we could have for listeners to kind of be reminded of certain things that stuck out to them so they can have a choice in purchasing, whichever to help support us in continuing to do this journey.
I'm just so excited. I think that concept is just amazing, and I cannot wait to see what happens with it.
Yeah, nervous, but
It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. Well,
well,
I suppose let's jump into it. I think you're asking me questions first, is what we decided on. So let's
yeah.
get
Are you
started.
ready? Are you
Uh,
ready to be your most vulnerable self?
yeah.
So, Shannon, you've spent 10 years in public speaking, which, by the way, I did not know that.
Okay.
What's the most powerful lesson you've learned from it?
Hmm. I think that people are emotion based. We all want to be logical and analytical in our lives, but in reality, no matter how logical and analytical you are, a lot of your decisions do come from your emotions and from your pre-cortex brain. And I think that is the biggest thing that I've learned from public speaking. And also, um, just keep messing up. I have done public speaking events. It says 10 years, but in reality, it's like one or two a year. So it hasn't been that many over 10 years. Um, and I think just the willingness to continue to fail is where things get good.
You are so good at that. Not okay, wait. That sounded like you're good at failing. I mean at that whole not having fear, or you might have it, but just going out and just conquering whatever, even if you fail. So that's what I meant, not that you're good at failing.
I mean, I'm pretty good at failing. I failed a lot of things over the years. Um, but no, I was actually having this conversation with a lady the other day, and we were talking about things, and she was like, "So, how did you get into muraling?" And I was like, "I tried it, and then Andrea left me alone with a mural and said, 'This one's yours.'" And I was like, okay. And that's how I started muraling. Or when we started the digital marketing company so many years ago, Amanda was like, "Well, this seems like a good plan." And I was like, "Okay." And I love to say yes to life and just see where it takes me.
I love that. I think we had several people on our podcast who said the same thing, and they did a lot, as have you. I say yes to things, but it's like minor. It's two little things that don't help me make money. My
Well,
husband would kill me for that.
that's
No,
an entire different conversation too.
like, of course I can help you. How much? It's on the house. Um, or for very little. So, what does your art represent to you?
Hmm. Healing. So my art, I don't know if our listeners know this, but I started painting while I was living in the shelter. Um, and so, living in a battered women's shelter, they had this art therapy class, and my case manager had said, "You should sign up for everything." And I was like, "Well, I'm not really an artist." And she was like, "This isn't for art, this is more of the therapeutic side." And I was like, "Okay, I'll sign up for that class." And I started painting, and I was like, "Oh, this is kind of fun." And when I was young, I would design paper dolls and clothing, and like I had an artistic streak. But when I found paint, it was a whole different dynamic for me. Um, and then when I moved out of the shelter into my first home, I had this dream and I woke up and I was like, I need to paint that. And I was like, that's a really weird thought. And I ended up painting that dream using my daughter's cheap paints on a cheap canvas. And I still have that, but it was a representation of my growth and healing and breaking chains from this woman's body. And to this day, it's probably one of my favorite paintings. But that is what art represents to me, is the process of healing, because I feel like even as you're painting, like you start off and you have this picture in your head of what this should look like, right? And then you start painting, and paint has a mind of its own. At least for me, it does, because I've never taken lessons. And so I have no idea how to make the paint do what I want or fight with the paint until I conquer it. I'm just like, okay, paint, it's your job to do whatever you want. And then I get to the middle and I'm like, oh, it's so messy. I hate this. And then you start putting in the little details and you're like, oh, this is actually kind of awesome. And so it's so representative of what the healing journey is overall. Just each painting represents that, because you've got like that beginning idea of what your life should look like. And then you get to the messy middle and you're like, this is nothing like what I thought. And then you get to the end and you're like, but it's still beautiful. And that's kind of my process as I paint.
And it kind of fits into one's life.
Yeah.
This is nothing like what I thought, but it's beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely.
How has your experience with childhood abuse and domestic we went straight there. Okay.
It's going to be all over the place, I have a feeling.
How has your experience with childhood abuse and domestic violence shaped the way you see the world?
Hmm. So, gosh, this has been a whole journey in and of itself, because I feel like growing up the way that I did, my dad went to prison for child abuse. And growing up the way that I did definitely left me vulnerable to things that I didn't realize, because I thought when I escaped, that was it. Like I was done with that lifestyle, I was done with all of that. But because of my wounds, we tend to find what's familiar. And so I went out and I found someone else who was just as wounded as me. And I was like, hey, we have all of these similar experiences. Let's hook up. And married him and had babies with him. And unfortunately, trauma begets trauma if you don't heal that. And so that led to my best worst day, where my life started over again with a brain injury, living in a shelter. And thankfully, I think about Tony Robbins said once, like, you have to blame people. If you blame them for the bad in your life, you also have to blame them for the good. And when I look back to the way that I grew up, we were poor. My dad was very violent. And I look back on that, and although that was the case, because we were poor, I can survive anything. Um, because he was violent, I know the level of my own toughness. And so I have to be thankful for that. I choose to be thankful for that. And then with my ex-husband, he gave me the best gift anyone could ever give someone. And I have kids because of him. And I'm incredibly grateful for my children. I don't know what I would do without them. And so I feel like growing up the way that I did and going through domestic violence, it just set the stage for me to find my passion and my purpose because now I know that people's worlds can transform. I know that you don't have to stay stuck in the trauma. And I think that's how it really impacted me.
That's good. What kept you going during the 11 years you fought for custody of your children?
My kids. Um, so that was by far the hardest battle of my life. And it wasn't all at once either. So I obviously went to court and they gave him supervised visits, which were increased gradually to where he had regular visits with them and saw them once a week and every other weekend. And while he was on probation, parole, whatever he was on, that was fine. But as soon as that 6 years of being monitored ended, things kind of changed for my kids. And that was when it became far more important to fight for them because without him being monitored, he was able to be angry and do the things that he had done. And I saw the escalation. I wasn't aware as much as I probably should have been. At least my mom heart says that. But when I did find out about it, I knew that I did not want to repeat those patterns in their lives and that they deserved to heal. And that kept me going. I mean, it was a lot of money, it was a lot of time, it was a lot of effort, it was so much emotional energy. And then also trying to make sure that the kids were emotionally okay and sound and going to therapy and all of the things. Like, it was a lot, but they're so freaking worth it, you know? And I just, I don't want their experience in life to be the same as what mine had been. And so, whatever I need to do to make sure that they grow up healthy and happy and have the fulfilling life as an adult, like, I want to do that.
Mhm. As parents should, but not all parents do, in my
Yeah.
experience. If you could tell your younger self one thing, what would it be?
Life is cyclical. Nothing sticks around forever. And I think that a lot of times we forget that when we get into the lows or when we get into the highs, we're like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy right now. Everything is great. It's wonderful. And we forget to appreciate it because that won't stay forever. But also, when we get into the lows, I had an experience over the past year where I spiraled so low that I was like, I don't know if I can pull myself out. And I forgot that lesson. Nothing sticks around forever. Like, if you're low right now, just wait. And if you're high right now, just wait because everything changes and everything goes in a cycle and everything follows the pattern of nature. So, whether you're looking at seasons, whether you're looking at day and night, whether you're looking at whatever you're looking at in nature, everything follows that pattern and everything is cyclical. And I think that's what I would tell my younger self.
I thought for a second there you could start saying the intro to our podcast. Remember, life is cyclical and dawn is coming.
Yes.
How is that memorized now in my brain? Oh, man.
Hilarious.
This brings us to some lighthearted questions. What's the weirdest or funniest job you've ever had?
Hmm. I was just talking about this today with someone. My very first job, I was a rock carver. Um, and so my grandpa dug a whole bunch of these huge sandstone rocks that you see in people's yards. They're like square pillar looking rocks that are turned on their side. And I carved people's names in those with a Dremel. And that was my very first job.
Well, that's fun. What's your guilty pleasure song or movie?
Hmm. Guilty pleasure. I don't really know. I'm so incredibly eclectic when it comes to that. My favorite movie is Life is Beautiful, which is an Italian black and white film that is absolutely amazing about the Holocaust. That's my favorite film. Um, Guilty pleasure is probably caffeine. I'm not supposed to have it, and I love to drink coffee. Um, and so that's probably my guilty pleasure. Or food in general. Like, I travel for food. I love food. I make all the food. If you've ever seen Over the Hedge, where he talks about this is the truck that brings the food, and this is where they worship the food, and that's kind of my life.
I'm not gonna lie, I would agree with that. Food is definitely something that I always look forward to.
Mhm.
Like, living here in Tampa, my husband and I have been exploring, and we have not really gone to a restaurant just to eat, like, a dinner or, like, a
Yeah,
lunch. We'll have, like, try this and then go somewhere else and try that. So we'll have, like, 5 lunches at, like, 5 different places, but it's not like a whole lunch. It's just like, try the appetizer here, try over here. Versus while there, we discovered that Florida makes the best wings.
really.
Yeah, coming from Springfield, I would say, many people said Coyote had the best wings.
Mhm.
You're from there. You probably had them. I was not a big fan, all right? I could not find wings that were, like, pretty good. You come to Florida, and there is not one place. I mean, I'm sure there are, but we've gone to so many places that, oh my goodness, I've been turned into a wing connoisseur. Like, I want wings all the time. But we did it so often, like every weekend, that I'm pretty sure I put on some fatage on me. So now that we've been, going out, we're like, "Hey, do you want to get wings?" I'm like, "No, I do not. I do not want to get."
Mhm.
Had my fill, and I need to just start to, space them out a little bit more. But Florida has some good food. What inspired your upcoming poetry book?
Um, it was actually kind of accidental. So, I had this conversation with someone, and we started talking about poetry, and I told them that I had only ever written 2 poems, and one was dedicated to coffee, and again, guilty pleasure. And the other one was dedicated to death, and they were like, "Well, that's a kind of a wide array of things," and I was like, "Yeah." Um, and then I was like, "I wonder what it would be like to, create more poetry." And I started writing. And then one of my friends opened a publishing company and contacted me and said, "Hey, we have some women poets who are getting together to publish this book." And I said, "Okay." And um, again, saying yes. And so I wrote 5 poems for that book, and I couldn't stop. And I got up to about maybe 170 poems that I'd written, because I'll wake up at 3 in the morning and I just have this poem in my head and I have to get it out. And um, probably 170 poems. And I reached back out to her and I was like, "What would it take for me to have my own poetry book?" And she was like, "Let's do it." And so that was kind of how that started. And then I've always wanted a book that told my story, but I've been really hesitant to publish something with all of the I don't want to create trauma porn, you know, and I don't want to put all of the exact stories in there. And so with poetry, I found that I could tell my story, but I could tell it through the emotions that I was feeling instead of actually telling the details of what that situation was. And so this poetry book walks literally step by step through that. The first chapter is called Sugar, Spice, and Other Lies. And I love that because my whole life it was you're supposed to be sweet and you're not supposed to be heard, and all of that as a child. And I was like, I'm not made of sugar and spice. That's a lie. I am made of fire and I am chaos. And I love that about myself sometimes. Um, but it's just the things that I went through as a kid. And then the second one is dying to survive. And that's talking about, my marriage and kind of just going through what the emotions were that I felt in each stage of life, the breaking into something that I didn't know if I was going to survive after my marriage. And that broken point where you're just like, oh my gosh, I have nothing, I am nothing, and having to get through that and bloom. And so it's really just inspired by my own story and by the emotions of my story.
We should have a segment where you break it all down. And you remember that phone call that we had where you're like, "Hey, I wrote the book and you want to," and you literally talked about every single chapter. I think we should have that inserted into the 20 questions. What's your favorite place you've ever traveled to and why?
Mm. So I love San Diego, California, and Belize. I think those are my two favorites. San Diego is like the ultimate combination of art and culture and beach and warmth, and the people are so kind and the food is amazing. And I love San Diego. And then Belize, I think it's more the memories attached with Belize because I went with my best friend to an all inclusive resort that we were the only two on the island with the staff for a little while. And then there were two other women who were traveling together for part of it. And then there was just one other couple. So the whole time that we were there, it was so intimate, and we got to know the staff and we got to really experience what their lives were like. And it was just so special. Like that memory is just so beautiful and so burned into my brain. And I don't know that anything could ever compete with that necessarily.
Why was it so empty? What time of year did you go? Or was it like more private or
It was a private resort, and it was also at the very beginning of monsoon season. So we did almost die on that trip, which probably, instilled it a little deeper into my brain, because we went out and we didn't realize that the storms were coming and we got a little too far away from the island. And so we had to come back, and the waves were absolutely crazy, and it was quite the experience. Um, but it was September, so it was right at the beginning of monsoon season. And so every afternoon there were these huge torrential downpours. And I love rain. And when I can have rain and the ocean at the same time, I'm in heaven. And so we would sit in that and we'd do face masks and just hang out and listen to the rain. And it was on a tin roof. All of the little cabins were just little stick cabins, right, on stilts. And it was amazing.
oh, that sounds beautiful. I love, yeah, being by water and it's raining.
Mhm.
So calming. What's your go-to comfort food?
Mm. Bourbon glazed salmon with asparagus and mashed potatoes.
Mm, very yummy. How has becoming certified in neuro-linguistic programming changed your life?
Hmm, changed my life. Well, I think before I knew what it was called, I already kind of ascribed to doing the practices, because a lot of it is about meditation and rerouting the pathways in your brain. And so, um, relearning how to think and how to take things from a negative to a neutral to a positive, and just really trying to change the ruts, for lack of a better word, um, that have been dug out in my mindset. And so I don't know that it really changed a lot. Primarily, what it gave me is an opportunity to share it with other people and have letters behind my name that say, hey, I know a little bit about this.
What's your go-to comfort food?
Tacos, specifically El Pastor tacos.
All right. Look at you. If you could swap lives with a fictional character for a day, who would it be and why?
I think this one's really challenging because I don't read a whole lot of fiction, so I'm not sure. So Terry Pratchett has this series, and I read this book called Thud, and the main character in that book is an amazing dad and husband and commits to like going home by 6 p.m. every day to see his wife and spend time with his kid. And he commits so much that they make a whole story out of it and how he has to get home by 6 p.m. and he like things happen and all of this. And so I think I'd like to be that person's wife.
Aw, that's so sweet. How do you balance creativity with the business side of your work?
um very poorly. I am definitely much better at the creative side and not so great at the business side. And so that is something that I have been working on for years. And sometimes I'm better about it and sometimes I'm not. But for the most part, I don't do very well at that.
What's a moment in your life where you felt truly powerful?
Hmm. So the second time I ever did public speaking, I was on the news and I was speaking about domestic violence and I had just moved out of the shelter. And I remember walking up those steps. And the first time that I had done a news piece, I had lost friends. I had had people call me a liar. It had been devastating, really, because these were people that I thought loved me and were a huge part of my world during my marriage. And so the second time that I walked up knowing that there could be consequences, and this was a choice that I was making. And I think in that moment, I took my power back because I was like, I don't care what anyone else says, does, thinks of me. In this moment, I'm doing what I know is right. And I know that speaking to women who could be in a situation like I was in is the right thing to do. And I think that may be one of my most powerful memories.
Another one is if you had a theme song that played every time you walked into a room, what would it be?
Hmm. I think it would be a song by Abel Hart, but I don't know which one. He has a lot that like he's my hype me up guy. If I'm feeling down about the world or life, I'll just listen to his music and it gets me like, oh yeah, I can do this. It's fine. So I think it would be an Abel Hart song.
What's something about you that would surprise most people?
I don't know. I'm such an open book. I feel like there's not a lot of surprises with me. I have a tattoo. People tend to be very surprised about that. I have a very large tattoo on my back.
Would you explain as to why, how, and when?
Yes. So I created this design when my youngest was born, and it was all of my kids' initials and my initials all combined. And I wanted that tattoo. I actually wanted it in white on my wrist. And so I had explained that to my husband, and he was like, "Oh, we're going to get your tattoo for Valentine's Day one year." And then he was like, "But you have to get it where I want it." So it ended up being on my hip, um, which looking back, choices. But when I got out of that relationship, I really fell in love with the concept of life being cyclical. And one of the representations of that is in the lifespan of a tree. Because trees actually in the winter grow more than any other time, but it's not visible growth because it's when their roots expand to search for water. And so you'll see the results of their growth during the winter, in the spring and the summer, as they bloom and actually grow on the surface. But all of that growth was actually set in motion through the winter. And I think our own lives can be exactly the same way. When things are hard, that's when we tend to grow the most. And that's kind of our winter. And so it's just a really beautiful reminder. And the tree on my back um, is not quite finished, but when it is finished, it will wrap around and it will have a green bud, just one green bud, as a reminder that no matter how hard things get, spring is always coming.
And it ties so well into our podcast. By the way, we're both wearing black.
Yes, I love it.
Podcast. That was not planned, everyone. What do you hope people feel when they see your art or read your words?
I want people to feel like they get to choose their life. I want everything that I do to be a representation of the choices that we get to make and how we get to choose what we see in the world, how we feel about what we see, what we want to do with our lives. You're not ever stuck anywhere. And I hope that my work is a representation of that, even in how it has grown over the years. And I hide hearts and everything because I want to remind people that you find what you look for in life. And I am very much a believer that you find what you look for in life. So if you're looking for the negative, if you're looking for the hardships, if you're looking, and you won't do that consciously, obviously, I don't think anyone is like, hey, I'm going to go out and find a hard time today. But if that's where your brain focuses, then that is what you're going to bring into your world because that's what you're attracting more of. And so I really hope that when people look at my work, they find their own hope and they find love in it and they find all the good things. But mostly, I want them to find the autonomy to make their own choices.
Beautiful. Well said. Well said. My co host, Shannon, everyone.
All right, it's my turn to question you now. So, what inspired you to become a nutrition coach and a personal trainer?
I think a series of frustrating events. I mean, I, as a young kid, would work out to my Barbie video. I'm sure people out there know this, at 5 a.m. And then I would eat breakfast and then I would walk myself to school. And then when I outgrew Barbie and her friends, I found Denise Austin and I just was so amazed that a woman could do that on TV and work out and have a life doing that. But I didn't think anything of it. And then working at a gym and seeing how it was unorganized, not well structured, kind of was like, is this it? Like, there has to be a better way. Like, I've clearly seen, Barbie do well at her job and Denise Austin. So I'm like, I'm sure this is not it. And so then I would go to other classes and they were more structured. I'm like, why isn't this cohesive? Why isn't this well ran? And soon to find out, they just hire anybody. Any person that's been coming to class can just teach a class, which is great. I'm not saying that is wrong or people shouldn't do that, but I think either have them get well trained, how to program a class, how to, you know, just structure it really well, and or know at least the anatomy and why we're doing the exercises. Otherwise, when they're leading class, they don't know who they're leading to. And they could just be saying, I've been to several classes where they're like, we're doing lunges and like, okay, you should be feeling this in your tricep. We're working our tricep. I'm like, no. And I'm just exaggerating. I'm like, that's your, quad, that's your glute. That's like nowhere near your tricep. Um, just things like that. So I think and many more situations, but I think a lot of I guess I've always grown up wanting to fix things or how can we improve on things. So I went in the direction of, I guess I should probably get trained and learn everything I can. And I didn't have any interest in sitting behind a desk. I pursued, getting better at teaching classes and becoming a nutrition coach and personal trainer and seeing how I can benefit people. So it began with frustration and it continued with, I guess, passion because I started to help see the difference I was making in people's lives. And they would say, "You've completely changed my life." And still to this day, I get that. And it just reminds me of, okay, I know it's only one person, but at least I'm changing that one person. Then that person goes on to, you know, um, help their cousin or their friend. And they're like, "Oh my goodness, I see that you're now this healthy person. You're so capable." And so they inspire someone else close to them to continue, whether they work with me or someone else, at least they're changing their life and spinning it for the better. And so that makes me at least feel like I'm doing some small part. um, I'm
I
helping
love
in
that.
some way, yeah.
Yeah,
So
I love that. It's like the story of the starfish. Have you ever heard that story?
no.
A little girl was walking with her grandpa along the shoreline, and the night before there had been a big storm, and a bunch of starfish washed up on the shore. And so she's going along and she's throwing it back in, and she's throwing one back in, and then she finds another one, and she throws it back in. And this other gentleman on the beach starts kind of laughing at her, and he's like, "Little girl, you can never make a difference. There are so many of these washed up on the shore." And she looks at him and she smiles and she says, she just picks up another starfish and she says, "Made a difference for that one." And so it was in front of people and everyone was like, "Oh." And so they all like join her and start throwing starfish back in the ocean. And so until the whole beach was clean. And so I've always loved that story. But when people talk about like how your how the impact that you have ripples out and affects other people, I always think of the starfish story because I'm like, that's exactly how it works. And when you were talking about, one person getting healthy and you don't know how that impacts their family or their friendships, because a lot of times all it takes is one person to inspire the people around them. So I love that. I love that so much for you.
Well, even just living my life in being healthy, I remember a friend um, had finally, mentioned that they're going to start joining the gym because they've seen my husband and I, especially my husband, he didn't work out before. And finally, he started working out, found something he loved. He lost all this weight and it inspired our friend to continue to do that. And sometimes, I feel like I'm not making a difference, because we're human. We always just I'm like, "Ugh, what am I doing?" And just by myself getting out there and working out is inspiring our closest friends or someone, that we've met. And it doesn't inspire them instantly, but at least over the years, like we've, helped change this life, that life, this life. Even if I didn't work with them,
Mhm.
we're at least, I guess, living that life that we're trying to say, "Hey guys, it's a lot more worth it living a healthy life than trying to, I guess, not living a healthy life." It's both difficult. I guess, which difficult path do you want to take?
Well, I love hearing about how your journey has impacted other people's. And I'm also very curious, how do you think that your trauma has shaped how you approach life?
That's a tough one. I want to say that I don't want people to feel what I felt growing up. Neglected, never enough, no matter how high of achiever I was, it was never good enough. Or that my opinions didn't matter or my thoughts or my feelings, none of it mattered. I never want anybody to feel that. So I guess that, at least that part of my trauma, I've carried on to the way I approach life so that, and now it's backfired in many ways, obviously. I've been learning that along with this podcast, and even before. But yeah, just, becoming a people pleaser, or like trying to change my way so that I take the heat, or I take the negative feelings someone might have towards that person onto me, so that that person can't feel that negativity. So I try to just kind of, I don't know, my whole life trying to help people feel like their thoughts and opinions like are very valuable, very worthy. Um, and if it's not, I try to protect them from it, I guess.
Mhm.
So I know that's not healthy, and I am learning to approach it in a different way. But at least I know that and again, we're not perfect, but I know that like I at least have, through the trauma I've been through, have only wanted to do good in the world, and not um, contribute to the bad in the world.
I think that's beautiful. I think that a lot of times um, motivators come in different ways. And for me, that's been a big one as well. And so I think it's absolutely beautiful to not want to do bad in the world. There's the saying, um, evil prevails when good men stand by and do nothing. And I think that that is something that we're all a little responsible for. Um, And I just, having known you for 10 years, I have seen your consistency of character over and over and over again in every experience with you, in the way that you interact with your friends. And it's just, even in the way that you are so steadfast with the podcast. Um, and I just think it's really beautiful that something so negative and so horrible could create such a beautiful human being.
Oh
So
my gosh. Do you want to make
don't cry. It's good. I really admire you.
Oh, that's so sweet. Okay, and pause.
Oh. All right. So now that we're back from our pause, what was the moment that you decided you wanted to change the world?
I don't think there was a deciding factor. I mean, who decides that? You know, I think there have been so many times, and I don't even know if I'm changing the world. Let's just be clear. But there have been so many times that people have come up to me, and they just tell me things about me that are crazy. For instance, well, now the whole world's going to know this story. Pretty much, let's rewind. So, growing up, I prayed to God that He kill me, right? Just please take me with you. Please take me home. Why am I here on this earth? I'm worthless, piece of crap. I'm never going to amount to anything. Why am I waste of flesh? All the little things, crying myself to sleep at night. Just wish that I would just be taken. I guess I always believed in God, but maybe I was losing faith, maybe. I don't know if you could say that. But having met my husband, then boyfriend, we were at a Walmart and I was purchasing something and he was with me. And that was when cash was still a thing. I was, getting into my little baggie and trying to get the pennies out to pay for my whatever I was getting. And this lady behind me was like, "Oh, I have pennies." And I was like, "No, no, it's okay." And I never ask for help. I never take anything. It's very hard for me to accept help. So I was like, "No, no, no." So I kept digging and I got the right amount. I got in the car. I was pulling out, and this lady rushes over to my window. She said, "No, no, no, no." She's like, "Hang on. I wanted to tell you this, but I was too shy. But as you left, I just felt like I really had to tell you." And so she told me um, things that no one would know as a stranger, things about me, things about how Jesus saw me in the crib and saw the pain I was going through, and he had me. And so things that, obviously no one would know, and she was just telling me all these things, and I just started crying. And that was one incident. The second incident was his mom took us to Florida, and we always had to attend a church there on a Sunday on vacation. And so that was very nice of her that I would be invited, the girlfriend of my boyfriend then. So we went to church, and we went up to the front because I want where am I going the right direction? Like, come on, God, talk to me again. Went up to the front, and the pastor again told him it's not time yet, and he had a conversation. I'm guessing he wanted to propose. And then he told me again things that people wouldn't know, and I was like, and then the third one was this lovely artist lady who you know very well, and I really, really want to have on the podcast, so I will not use the name. But my husband found her, and through all the incidences, it was just crazy how it worked out. But she basically wrote in the back of the painting that she made for us why God created him, why God created me, and why he brought us together in our mission in life. And so many years later, I don't know what that's going to look like. I still don't. I'm just, you know, open to wherever the Lord leads me. But yeah, there's been several incidences outside of that where people just come up to me and they just say they see like purple around me, and they tell me the meanings of that. It depends on like the situations, like Reiki people and then yoga people and like normal people. Not that they're not normal. That sounded bad. Anyway, I don't know. I don't know that change the world. I don't know that I am. I'm just trying to my best to listen to God and get out of my own way. And every day I just spend a little time with him and try to make sure that he keeps me on the road or path that he wants me on. I don't know what that is, but yeah,
Nice. I
I'm
like
s-
it.
this is terrible.
No, it's not.
Oh
No, I
God.
think that's beautiful. I think it's always important that we have people who step in and reaffirm that we're on the right path, right? So, like, none of us wants to feel lost. And so often that is how we spend our adult lives, is just kind of like, am I doing the right thing? What's happening in my world right now? And I think that's a normal adult experience that for some reason our parents never told us was part of the experience, you know? And so it's nice to have those people who step in and they're like, oh yeah, okay. And I don't think many world changers step into the life and they're like, I'm going to change the world today. We're not like, is it Pinky and the Brain? We're going to take over the world or something like that. Like that's not how most of us start and end our days. We're like, okay, can we pay the bills? Okay, is my life making some sort of impact? Okay, am I being the best friend, best partner, best whatever? And it's all those little tiny choices that add up to the sum total of what your life is. And that's where world changers are created, is in those tiny little moments. And so I love that for you. So the next question is, what is a myth about health and fitness that you wish more people understood? What's something that you see people thinking a lot that's actually complete bullshit?
Well, currently it's the frustration of people wanting, actually, it's not currently, it's been going on for a long time. People just wanting, the same old quick fix, not understanding that one of the things that I always get is, oh, I used to be active. Oh, I used to be active. But every single person who have said that is like, when I was in high school, I was active. And the people that I meet are 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 60. So it's like everyone, most people that I've met who've said that story always goes back to high school. So what is the common denominator? They are active while they're growing, right? While they're in high school, but as soon as they get out, then they stop being active, right? They're going into college or they're working, and then they don't have the curriculums to continue to push them and keep them active. So people, not realizing that you, just because you worked out in high school doesn't mean you're an athlete, doesn't mean you're that person. Your identity is what you make of it every single day, what you prioritize. And if you think about it from, 18 when you graduated, 17 to 25, that's 5 years. It could go one direction or the other. Are you continuing to be mindful of moving and exercising and caring for your one body that God gave you and your health? Or are you prioritizing other things that we need to worry about anyways, that comes with like growing up in the world? But you're neglecting the one thing that's going to get you through that. And so then they see, oh, I gained 50 pounds, 100 pounds, 200 pounds, whatever it is. And they're like, I need to lose this ASAP. What's the quickest way? Well, it took you 5 years to put that on. How
Hmm.
long is it going to take you? Not a day, not a week, not a month, not 6 months. It's going to take a long time to get back to the journey. So, I guess the one myth is there is no quick way to care for your health. It's something that you have to keep watering every single day, prioritizing yourself every single day, because you only get one, and it's the other thing, I guess, is part of that is the gut biome, and like the new cool thing that happens next week, and the one cool new thing that's going to be like focused on in a month or 2 months or a year. Just get rid of all the fluffiness. Just go back to like, am I getting enough sleep? Am I drinking enough water? Am I eating enough of the rainbow, the vegetables, the nutrients, the fruits? Am I getting enough lean protein, a wide variety mixture of it? Am I offering my body what it needs? And am I moving enough to be able to use that as fuel, instead of, do I spend most of the time on the couch sitting at a desk, or am I moving, to be able to expend that energy? Back in the day, people cooked, people cleaned, people, went out and hand washed laundry. They burned extra amount of calories, and they didn't just sit and drive everywhere or sit everywhere and just consume calories by not earning their food. So just, I guess if that answers it.
No quick fixes. I like it, and it's so accurate to everything in life. If you're trying to go from in the red to in the black in anything, it's going to be small choices over and over and over again. It's about the consistency. So,
Yeah.
what is the hardest challenge that you've had to overcome in your journey so far?
You know what? I'll just take it back to just a thing that happened kind of recently, actually last year. The moving part. I think we've been in Missouri for so long that we have never actually gotten a chance to move out of there and live anywhere else. And then the fact that I had to do it by myself was very scary and new, considering I'm like the biggest scaredy cat on the planet of Earth, or any planet for that matter. So that was challenging and very scary, very lonely. But that was, after it's been said and over and done with, look what I can do. I can do it again. Let's do it again. That was so much fun. It was so intense, so much fun. I could do it again. So, yeah.
Nice. It's such a huge challenge. I was in Springfield for 22 years before we moved up here, and it was, I mean, it was a year of just like, did I make the right choice? Now I have no doubt that I did make the right choice, but it was uh it was quite the journey to get to that point. So,
Yeah. Well, we definitely know we made the right choice because we did not want to be in Springfield anymore, but it was challenging just being away from any person that I knew. No
yeah.
family, no kids, no parents, no friends, nothing. So it was very challenging. But yeah, made it through. It's all good.
So, if you could sit down with your younger self for 5 minutes, what would you tell her?
You are loved. Yeah.
And you're worthy of that love.
Yeah. I actually talked to my uncle and he kind of caught up with everything. After moving to Florida, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I felt like I could speak to my family again, because before I felt like I could not. Um, I don't know. I just felt like my mother had, I don't know. I don't know. Just had me. And even though I didn't live with her or anything, I couldn't say my truth. And now that I live many states away, I felt like I could say my truth. And so I was like, hey, I would love, to now rebuild this relationship that we didn't have. And I won't say a lot on here for some reasons. One of the things that was said was, I do remember that you always had sadness in your eyes. And so that's what I pictured when you asked me that. I envisioned that little Sally being full of sadness.
Well, you are completely loved and you are worthy of that love. And I'm really glad that I get to share this podcast with you. Um, the next question is a little easier. What is a wellness habit that has completely transformed your life?
I don't know. I feel like I've always been into fitness and I gravitate towards actually one of my clients asked me this morning, she's like, "What's your favorite like snack?" And I was getting ready to answer. She's like, "But it has to be naughty. It can't be good." And then I had to pause and she's like, "Oh my goodness, like your face right now." Like you're in distress because I couldn't come up with anything at the spot because I was just thinking immediately like cucumbers and chili, lemon and salt, or dill pickles. My number one thing that my mom always hid from me when I was a kid because I was obsessed with dill pickles and I still am. But then afterwards, I left and then I answered her like an hour later. I'm like, "Oh, I remember spicy Doritos or Takis." Takis? Anyways, I love those, but I never have them in the house, so I hardly ever eat them. Like I haven't had them in like, I don't know, years. So, yeah. I guess a healthy habit for my mental state. I don't do this regularly, but I do it for I don't know, for meditational purposes. I go for a run. And it's not every week and it's not on a schedule. It's just if I don't do it, I feel, like I can't think. Everything starts to get clustered and it's just not happiness. So then I have to go out and just breathe and run and get out into the air and see the ocean because I live in Florida now. So I get to run by the ocean and the bay and it's just amazing. Or running like with trees hanging over you and just like
Mhm.
listening to the gospel or, spending time with God or with my thoughts. Sometimes it like helps me organize my thoughts or it brings new ideas. I just love running and it brings, um, what it brings to me, what it creates.
I love that. I I love what you said about it's not even a habit necessarily anymore because that's when you know it is a habit. But the fact that you don't shop for food that is toxic to your body. I think that you hit on two very important habits, like paying attention to yourself and knowing when you need one of those runs for your mental health. And then also just not having stuff in the house that is toxic. So I remember when Ash was little, preschool or kindergarten, and she got in the car one day and she's already like real huffy. So she gets in the car and she lets out this really long sigh. Mom, did you know that people have dessert at their houses? And I was like, yeah. She was like, you did? I was like, yes, I knew that. And she was like, why don't we have dessert at our house? And I was like, well, we have fruit and stuff. She's like, that's not dessert, mom. She was like, why don't we have dessert at our house? I was like, we have dessert as a treat when we go out to other places. That made me think of that when you were like, I can't even think of an unhealthy snack because we just keep healthy snacks in the house. And I was like, oh, yeah, I can remember days like that where Ash was like, Mom, and I'm kind of still shopped the same way. I don't know. If we want to have something unhealthy, we have to go out to have it and then we regret it. And so it's easier to not do that in the future, hopefully.
I remember having a friend when I was younger, and their dessert was peaches or some sort of fruit. Oh my God, I want to have dessert. That's so cool. Because if we wanted dessert in our house, you had to get a second full tray helping. So, like chicken and beans and rice or whatever it was, and you were still hungry, you had to get another serving.
Oh, wow.
So you couldn't have dessert. So I was like, oh, I want to have like peaches for dessert. I love that. So now as an adult, I have my cherries or whatever dessert, my pickles. Usually it's cucumbers. I love cucumbers. But yeah.
That's awesome. All right. These questions kind of jump all over the place. So we're back to a hard one now. What does healing mean to you?
I've gone really well of knowing the things that may trigger me and just sitting with those feelings, but not responding with them. And I always grew up doing this kind of analyzing the room and because I had to be quiet and everything. But I think now I try to focus on why I feel that way, why I'm feeling this feeling, and then trying to stack in its little shelf where it needs to go and work through it instead of crying into tears or something that's not beneficial. And yeah, I don't know.
I think that that was probably a good answer. It's really important for us to process our emotions. And so having healing where you create space to do that, I think that's incredibly valid. How do you handle self doubt or imposter syndrome?
Not very well. I think listening to songs or following some people on Instagram that post motivational things on it and the Bible or all the above, that not everyone is an expert at any one thing. We're just all continuously learning and growing, being okay with not having it all together, being okay with the growth with the messy part, as you say. Do I still have imposter syndrome? Yes, but just kind of giving myself grace and feeling those feelings, but then processing them. And then I guess giving me a pep talk or listening to a pep talk and then continuing on.
I like it. All right. Hopefully, let's go back to a good one again. What is your favorite childhood memory?
Mexico. Every summer, I don't know how long this went on for, but my mom would drop us off in Mexico, and it was the best time on earth. I think maybe that was when I actually felt loved and safe for the most part. And my grandpa meant the world to me. He was amazing, but I was too young to understand to spend time with him. I just wanted to play. And he wanted to teach me the harmonica. And I was like, no, I want to play and run around. So I have that as a not a regret. Is it a regret? Just kind of as a missed opportunity to spend more time with him and learn an instrument with him. But those are my happy times. Mexico. My grandma had a fig tree in the back, and I would love the figs. And I would climb it and we would eat them. And that's the first thing I looked forward to. As soon as we got to Mexico, I just wanted to eat figs.
That's awesome. All of yours are so serious.
I know.
All right. Well, since I guess you get all of the serious questions, what is a small but powerful shift in your mindset that has helped you get to where you are in your life right now?
I've started, you know how we've talked about how we're able to breathe now that we're not. Every time we came to Florida to visit, so happy I can breathe. I just love the air here. I love everything about Florida and just nature, the birds. I don't know what it is. The birds, all different types, the cranes, the everything. I think I just every day take a moment to just breathe and look at a crane or something or the ocean or my little lake in the back or my pool or something and just be grateful. So gratefulness is a mindset shift that I've been not working on. I guess I've been giving that more time
Mm,
in this new journey, admiring the beauty that is around us. I did
I
that
love-
in Springfield, but it wasn't the same after a while. So,
yeah, I love that. I think gratitude changes everything in life. And I love that so much.
yeah.
All right. So we're going to go back to food. What is your go to comfort meal that also makes you feel amazing?
Oh, ceviche.
I love ceviche so much.
Because if it didn't make me feel amazing, it would be pizza. I love pizza. But my other comfort food is always ceviche. I just ceviche or tuna, is it called tartar? Tuna something?
Hmm. I like
Any
that too.
anything raw seafood, I'm
Yeah.
all about it. Oysters, I'm all about the seafood. But
Yeah.
yeah, ceviche is always my go-to. Always make it in the house, especially during the summer. Yeah.
I love ceviche. I remember the first time I tried it, my ex husband was DJing some party, and I was like, what is this? It's the best thing I've ever put in my mouth. I love ceviche so much. So, and I
And it's
haven't made any in a long time. So I'm going to have to do that. My hair is driving me crazy.
yeah, literally just buy 2 bags of shrimp or 1 and then just throw it in with lemon, just let it sit there, and then I add all the veggies. Oh, it's so good.
Hmm.
You get
Yeah,
all your protein in there and you feel amazing.
I love ceviche.
Actually, I think I made a post on that on, the In the Black
Yeah.
page, but yes. So, a little tip for everyone needing more protein, there you go.
All right. So, how has hosting the In the Black project made an impact on your life?
Does it have to be like a big impact?
I don't think so. I think just anything.
So, it feels right. There's nothing wrong about it. Does that make sense? You know, when you go to work and you're doing something, you're just like, "Why am I doing this?" Or, "God, this is awful," or, "I'm dreading this," or whatever. This is one of the first times in my life where I started a project and I didn't have dread going into work and doing all of this interviews and scheduling people and editing and doing all the things that go with it, even social media. I had my business before, and getting on social media was just, oh, the end of the world. And posting about all these women on our social media account for In the Black has been so easy and exciting and fun. Not even exciting, just a calm sense. And I don't know where that comes from. Maybe it's because we are supposed to do this. I don't know. But it's brought a calming into my life.
I love that. I do think that being led by peace is so important and so valid. I think that our bodies react to what we should or should not be doing before sometimes our brains can even process it. And so when you feel that, like, I can breathe. That's typically a sign that you're a total body yes. And I think when we're wishy washy, usually we actually know the answer. We just don't want that to be the answer. And so I love hearing that the podcast is a total body yes for you. That's pretty exciting. Someone asked me the other day, they were like, "So, do you think that you'll quit or Aracelli will quit the podcast?" And I was like, "What?" And I couldn't like comprehend the question at all. I was like, um, I really don't picture either of us quitting. I was like, I I don't think that either of us will quit.
I don't think there's been thought of it. Who said that? Who asked that? Was it a random stranger or was it
No,
someone you know?
it was in the context of some conversation. Um, so we were talking about art and how it's one of the only things that I haven't been like, okay, now I'm bored, goodbye. Um, and so they were like, "Oh, and now you're doing the podcast and you have the poetry book." And I was like, "Yeah, I think poetry is a project for me. I think once I get through, maybe I'll write more throughout my life, but this like passionate waking up at 3 a.m. and writing a bunch of poetry every morning, like that's not going to be forever. I feel like poetry is definitely just a project, but art and this podcast, they feel right forever. And those are two things that I don't see myself quitting. And so it was in the context of that conversation, but I was like, I don't really see either of us quitting this. I was like, yeah, I don't know.
The one thing I feel is anticipation and excitement for when we start to see the paintings come together, the experience coming together, the art projects coming together, putting all these women's stories together in the book, continuing with wherever the podcast is going to lead us next. I think that's the excitement, anticipation, and the scary factor that comes into it just because of like the unknown. But every day waking up to it is filled with peace and I can't wait to get to edit and get to the next one. But then there's always when I get too ahead of myself, oh my God, when am I going to see the paintings? When are we going to see this? When am I going to get to the painting? When am I going to finish the painting? I always have this feeling of just um, patience, just patience. That's all
Yeah.
and that's why I am spending a lot of time with God. I was like, God, is this you telling me to be patient or is this me telling you to be patient? Can you make that clear?
Yeah. No, I totally understand that, especially like because I had so kind of a interesting backstory that most people don't know is that I completed 8 paintings for this already. Um, And then I made some mistakes in who I hung out with, and those paintings ended up being stolen, destroyed. I don't know what happened to them. But they're no longer in my possession because of someone that I knew. And so starting over has been a little challenging because it's like, I already did this a little bit. But also, I'm taking a portrait painting class now, and the quality difference is amazing. And so I'm very thankful that that happened because the other ones were very abstract and fun, but they weren't what I was looking for. And so now I'm learning techniques that I've never taken an art class before. And so um, it's been nice to actually learn techniques and feel like I'm doing things that a real artist would do.
That sucks. I would be in the same boat if my art got actually was in the same boat because my poetry and my paintings got stolen in high school and they were in Spanish songs I wrote.
Mhm.
I can't recreate the stuff, so
Right.
it's really difficult.
What is a book, podcast, or person who has deeply impacted you or influenced you?
You know, I'm gonna say my husband. We were joking about this the other day. Oh, he's working on the jet ski, and this guy was, I think complimenting him of fixing a jet ski because he's never done that before. I'm like, "Oh, this guy," and I was bragging on him. I was like, "My husband can fix, like, so many, like, anything he rather do everything himself. Like, he is so handy in that way." I'm like, "Oh," made a joke, "That's why I married him," you know? And he was like, "Oh, so did he take you apart and fix you?" I was like, "Yeah. Yeah, he did." Absolutely, he did. He yeah, went through my hardest, because I was brainwashed, essentially. I grew up knowing just one thing, and so he stayed with that and endured so much of my beliefs and was gentle and patient in helping me transition from that to who I am now. So he is my biggest influencer.
Oh, I love that so much. So cute.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because other people just see you as weird or like messed up or whatever, and for him not to pass any judgment and to just know where I came from and was just there every step of the way was incredible. So, and it still is. So,
That's really beautiful. I love that. Moving on from that, which is so cute. What is a dream or goal that you haven't really shared with very many people?
I don't know that it's a dream or a goal because I'm flying now at the giving it all to wherever he wants me to go. So I don't know what that looks like. But as a younger kid, I always wanted to be a singer and an actress. So in Springfield, I actually did dabble on doing a little bit of that. And I wouldn't mind doing a little bit more of that because that is definitely a happy place. Getting on set and I don't know, just talking to people from all around the world and how they got, chosen or how they heard about the project and how we all came together and then what they do and certain projects they've worked on and we just get to like hang out. And then when it's time for us to be on set, like it just feels so playful and so, I don't know. If I could do that, I would do that. So
I love that. I would love to hear you sing. I think that when I come to visit you, we should go out to karaoke. I will not sing. I'm terrible, but I got the art gene. I did not get the music gene. Um, but I would love to listen to you.
I'm a terrible singer. I cannot sing, but I love to sing. And just like I'm sure I'm a terrible actress and I cannot act, but I love to do it. So
Have you looked into the community theaters there in Tampa where you are?
no, no.
You should do it.
Yeah, there was a vocal group that met on Monday nights, the first and the third, I believe, and I almost checked into it, but it's in St. Pete, so it's like 45-minute drive. So
Gotcha.
I haven't done that. But I should start looking into just doing a few commercials here and there. I don't want to do a movie or anything. I just want to, maybe it was a background. I just want to do the small projects because it's so fun. I don't think I think because of my trauma, my brain trauma, I can't remember lines very well.
Mm.
So I don't think that I could do that. Like actual have a big character that has to memorize so many lines.
So, what is one thing that people assume about you that is not true?
People assume that I've gotten people that come up to me and they think I'm tough and they think I'm very serious and professional and I'm very outspoken, extroverted,
Mhm.
but I'm completely the opposite.
I definitely made the assumption that you were extroverted and outgoing.
Yeah, people tell me that a lot. I have to be because of the role that I've been in. So at work, I'm very professional, very extroverted. I have to, you know, make everyone feel welcome. I have to play the role. But if I'm not in work mode and I'm just a guest or whichever, then I am my natural reclusive self. I've gotten better over the years where I have, especially now in Florida, because you have to get uncomfortable to try to make friends, since we don't have any, we're new. So I've gotten a lot better at that. yeah, I'm definitely an introvert. I get exhausted being very social. So,
Yeah, I'm the same. I think social is exhausting and I make myself do it.
yeah.
But I think you might be more introverted than me, actually.
Probably from stories I hear. You did what? Uh, and I'm the biggest scaredy cat, so yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
I'm definitely not a scaredy cat. I'm a risk taker, but I never would have imagined you as a scaredy cat either. I think just the fact that you jumped into the podcast kind of proves that that's not quite true.
well, I was scared. I only did it because of you. You you were just like, "Let's do it. Let's go for it. Let's start it on this day. It's gonna happen." I was just like, "But no." And we have so many things to work on and like make sure and blah blah blah. And you're like, "Nope, we're doing it this day or we're not doing it at all." And I was like, "Okay."
That was more for me because I know myself, and if I don't start something when I'm excited about it, then by the time it's put off, then I'm not excited anymore because I don't know about it, and just like, meh, it's fine, take it or leave it. I'm not going to make it a priority anymore, and so, but
Do you think this would have been that though? Or do you think this would have been that though?
um, I think if I hadn't had the opportunity to experience the podcast while excited about it. I'm still excited about it. So, but I don't know that if we kept pushing it back and it was all about the work that goes into it, I don't know if I would have been as excited about it, if that makes sense. And so I
Yeah.
don't know if I ever would have wanted to start, which is what I was afraid of because I have a couple of friends who are podcasters and all they were like, it's like so hard and you can't find guests and blah, 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 which is so interesting to me because I don't feel like we've had to hunt for guests. um, but for me, I was a little more nervous about that, like of getting bored, and so far that has not been the case.
Yeah. I know you were talking about your therapist and finding a way to have a platform to get, tell the stories. Have you
Mhm.
talked to her about it? And like, what are, now that the podcast is a thing and it's happening, like, what are the thoughts on that? Or what does she think?
I have not talked to her about it, but I do think that this was a great way to tell stories. Now it's a matter of trying to figure out who I want to choose to showcase in the paintings. I think that's much harder.
But we both agreed on one
Yes,
and definitely have another one in mind now.
yeah,
I'm sure we're thinking of the same person,
probably.
but okay.
If you could have dinner with any historical or influential figure, who would it be?
I kind of want to say, I don't know, people are probably sending hate mail, hopefully not. And it goes back to one of the podcasts that we had, the episodes with Bon, where we talked about how, and you actually, Bon and I, all had the same feelings of, one of them was the Cosby Show, and how we
Mhm.
were oh, we were like wishing we had that life, and then come to realize people have that life. We just didn't get to experience that kind of life. So I guess it's not the real character or the real person, but the characters in themselves. I would want to have dinner with the Huxtables,
Oh, that's
like
cute.
be a cousin or whatever part of that family, and like feel that love and feel that nurture and cared for, and learn about experiences in like the healthiest way. Yeah. So
I love that. So you are incredibly disciplined, and I'm just curious, what is one thing that you do every day to stay mentally or physically strong?
I guess I pray. I spend time with God, or try to um every day make a point to spend time with him. So
I think that praying is beautiful. I tend to meditate in the mornings. Um, And I think that's such an important part. Just getting your mind right is such an important part of the day. And so I think that's awesome. Um, now, what is one thing as the mastermind behind the In the Black podcast?
I wouldn't go.
Um, huh?
I wouldn't go that far.
You are totally the mastermind behind the podcast. But what is one thing that you hope that people get from the podcast?
I hope people get courage and find strength within these stories, um, to get out of situations that might be harmful to them or their lives or their loved ones' lives. Yeah, I hope that it brings light to someone's darkness.
I love that. I hope so too. That's that's the whole point of everything that we're doing here. And you're such a beautiful human. I'm so glad I got to ask you questions today.
You are too. Well, thank you so much. You're making me blush now. Jeez.
Good. And that concludes our 20th podcast. How exciting is that?
So, what'd you say the other day? 20th percentage. What was that?
Oh, we're 20, we're a tenth of the way to being a good podcast now, because usually the 200th podcast. So we've made it a tenth of the way to a good podcast.
10% celebration.
Yeah.
We have many more episodes to go. We're not going anywhere. We have tons of people on our wait list. So, yeah, stay tuned.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of In the Black. I hope today's story left you feeling inspired and reminded of the incredible strength that lies in each of us. Our guest today has taken her toughest challenges and transformed them into something beautiful, reminding us all that even in the darkest moments, there's always a way to find light in the world.
If you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to subscribe and share In the Black with another woman who could use a little encouragement. Together, we're building a community of passion, purpose, and power. Until next time, stay strong, stay inspired, and remember, your story matters. Your choices change things, and being your most authentic self can and will change the world around you. Hi, I'm Aracelli, and I'm inviting you to the In the Black experience. Imagine waking up to the sound of waves, journaling with the sunrise, and ending your evenings with soulful reflections under the stars. This is more than a retreat. It's a space for deep healing, creativity, and connection with like-minded women. If you're ready to transform your pain into powerful purpose, the In the Black experience is calling you. Spots are limited. Reserve your place today. You'll find that link in the show notes. Or follow us on Instagram, and you'll find the link in our bio.